to go live today to show you a fun 3-part cup and 2-part tutorial. I hope that makes sense. I will do one part of the tutorial today, and then next Tuesday, when I do my Tuesday live, I will pop back on and do the second part and finish up the tumbler. So let's get started. This is a tumbler that I made a while back, and it was one of the Tack It methods. I used the gold from Puzzle Tumblers, and I did tack it on here, but it's been sitting here staring at me like, do something with me, please, do something with me. And so I'm going to do something with it today. I'm gonna make sure that you guys are able to see. Diamonds from Puzzle Tumbler. The middle part is the Tack It, and we're going to leave it alone, but I will later on apply some lines. I'll be coming back in. You can probably see that there are some leaves on here that I put on in removable vinyl. And when we pull them up, it'll be the same color as the center. I out gold vinyl, and I did an outline of the leaf on my silhouette so that later on when I pull this up, I can apply the outline and it'll just make it look more finished. So we're going to do the white, then we're going to leave the center alone, and down here I'm going to do the wood grain. So that's what we're going to do right now. We'll start with the wood grain, and then we will move up to the white. The only reason why I'm doing that is because I don't want any of my alcohol ink to end up on the white glitter and not be able to remove it. I will be using Tim Holtz Mushroom, Tim Holtz Sepia, and I don't know it just yet. This is the Burnt Sienna. It is the Hobby Lobby brand. So I don't know quite yet that I'm gonna use that, but I love doing wood grains. It's been a while since I've done one. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I may do mine slightly different than yours. I will be going over the top of the removable vinyl so that later when I pull it up, you'll be able to see the glitter underneath. So we will get started. I am making sure that I have my gloves on because I promise you I will make a mess if I don't. If you do your wood grain differently, that's fine. This is the way I do mine. It doesn't mean that what you do is wrong. I just like to make sure that there's more grain in mine, and I like to use multiple colors of alcohol inks. If you don't know how to do a wood grain, there are tons of videos out there on how to do them. Basically what I'm doing right here is I'm applying my alcohol ink. I'm using a 1/2 inch bristled paintbrush that I got in the paint department at Walmart, and I'm just brushing in the wood grain. As I said, I do like to use multiple colors of alcohol ink, simply because most trees aren't the same color. I will say what I always say, alcohol ink removes alcohol ink. So if you put it on, it's going to cause slight differences because the alcohol is going to cause the alcohol ink underneath it to dissipate. So right here, I'll come back and I probably will put a knot in right there. So if it runs, it's going to cause a problem with your wood grain. So just remember that. Try not to let it run as much as possible. But it's time for the fall cups, and this is a great fall cup to do. As you see, by pushing it down, I'm able to make some of the grains in the wood grain cup and the wood grain design. I will say, if you decide to do something like this, do not wear something that you want to stay clean because alcohol ink will go everywhere. At least it does for me. I mean, I act like everybody is just as messy as I am, but really, that may not necessarily be the case. It's just me. And if you see, I'm pushing it down and it's causing that grain to show up just by pushing the alcohol onto the alcohol. And that's how you get your wood grain look. So put a little bit of the sepia on. This does come out very quickly, so be very careful. Do you see it starting to run? You don't want it to run. I think that's why I don't want to use the sepia. I don't really want that orangey colored. I want more of the brown because of it being a fall tumbler. And if you notice up here, it is going up. So had I done my white glitter first, there's a good chance that it would have turned my white glitter brown. And we don't want that. Wood grains are a lot of fun, especially for baseball tumblers. I mean, the baseball bat tumblers. The football tumblers. So it's a good thing. It's a good technique to know. Brush it down, start a wood knot. And the way you do that is by adding just a tiny bit and push the ink down in one direction until you feel like it has gone as far as it's going to go. Add a little bit more. You can push it up, but you don't want to go all the way to the top. When you do it, you want to push it just a little bit, and the next time you do it, you're going to push it even less. And I'm just pushing that alcohol ink up into the darker area to give it more of a wood knot look. Pushing it down just slightly, not all the way down. I don't want it to wipe out any of the alcohol ink down below. And I'll repeat, the way I do things is the way that works for me. I like to share what works for me, but I will say that if there's another way that you do it, then that's awesome. That doesn't mean the way you do it is wrong. It's just the way that works for you. This is just something that I learned a while back and it works for me. And I like to share what works for me so that people who are getting started will know what they need to know. Now, wood grain knots take a little longer than most part of the wood grain, simply because of you wanting it to look like a knot and not other parts of the body. And if you know me, you know what I'm talking about. Keep going around, and I continue to add until I feel like it's completely filled and it looks like a tree trunk. I'm going to turn it around so I could see what it is that I'm doing. Doing this upside down, it's not very easy. And remember, in these areas right here, I will be pulling up the leaves, so that we have the peekaboo underneath. And when I put my alcohol ink on, I'm putting it on the stickers so that when it pulls up that ink underneath it, it is actually pulling, as I said, alcohol ink will pull up alcohol. So if you ever get alcohol ink on your skin, you know to use alcohol to remove it. Got a big old white spot here. Now, whatever brown you decide to use, that's great. But best part about the, sorry for my dog barking. The best part about doing a wood grain is you can do it in whatever color you want. I've seen it done in pinks and reds. She's not even in here. She's in the other room barking at a cat. Seen these done in pinks and reds and blues, so you can do your wood grain in whatever color you decide you want to do it in. I need to get the bottom. I'm gonna do it over here. I can't get it underneath my camera without moving my camera, but all I'm doing is swishing it around, making sure that the bottom is covered. Just like that. Looks good to me. And if you've ever done a wood grain tumbler, you'll know that it will turn green when it goes underneath your epoxy. It's okay. Most of the time, 99.99% of the time, it's going to go back to the color of the alcohol ink that you used. So don't panic. If you feel like you need to seal it, you can seal it. That might also turn your alcohol inks a different color, but don't panic. It's okay. It will go back. If you notice, every time I push down here, I'm not going all the way to the bottom. I'm just pushing the alcohol ink so where that it kind of makes a wall, I guess you could say. Go upwards with it as well. And you push it until you feel like you have pushed it as much as you can. I hope this is making a little sense. And you just keep adding your alcohol ink until you get smaller and smaller. And you get that little knot look in here. Whoop, went a little too far down. Looks like my knot just got a little bigger. That's okay. It is what it is. You just have to play the game of what it wants to play. Just have to let it ride, do what it wants to do, because you're not going to have control no matter what. That's the best part about doing these, is that you just have to let the alcohol ink do its thing. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to let that knot ride, is we are going to add our white glitter. Now I'm adding white glitter up here. I am going to use the epoxy method. I think I'm going to take a smaller brush and work on this knot a little bit, because I think I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. It needs a little bit of help with a smaller brush. Yeah, that looks better. Let it dry, run a little bit. Okay. And that's over a leaf as well, so it'll make a little difference in a little bit. My different colors of wood grain. Add a little bit more over here. I love the sepia look on that, but I like the Tim Holtz sepia better than the Hobby Lobby brand. That's just my personal preference. I'm sure there are other alcohol inks out there that would have just as pretty a look, but personally, I love the Tim Holtz. A little bit more right here. Very good. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply our epoxy, so we can do our epoxy method on our white glitter. I think this is going to be okay. No, I think I'll probably change my gloves. I really don't want to get. I think okay. Okay, so we're only going to use a little bit, a tiny itty bitty bit. So we'll have our part A and our part B. I use CC DIY. Just a little bit. You do have to have at least 2 ounces. Your part B is the more runny. I don't want it to come out too fast. There we go. So I like to add my part A to my part B because it's thicker and therefore it won't stick to the bottoms of the sides. Just a little bit, stir it up. It's going to be the epoxy method, so I'm not worried too much about bubbles because we're not really putting a whole lot on here. Normally I would tell you don't stir it like you're making scrambled eggs, but again, because I'm really not putting a whole lot on, it's going to be okay. Just a little bit. In fact, what I just had on my finger is probably enough, and it's taking off some of this. Just enough to make it sticky. You don't want it to be running too much. I'm trying to keep that from getting on here. It did a little bit, but it's not going to make that much of a difference because I'm going to cover it in white glitter. Okay. So we have our wood grain on the bottom, our white glitter on top. Still have a bunch of epoxy left over. I'll add that to later on. Again, using white diamonds from Puzzle Tumblers. Very pretty iridescent color glitter. I used it in my live last night as well. Very pretty. It's got a green tint to it. Very good. And keep in mind, when I say very good, I'm a preschool teacher, and so I have a tendency to say that a lot. And I noticed that I say that a lot in my lives to myself, and I think it's just out of habit that I say that. It's very, very strange. So if I say very good, it's because, yeah, it's the preschool teacher in me. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is pull off the leaves with my little hook here. Slightly. I did use removable black vinyl, so I can see it and it will come up easily, as opposed to permanent. You don't want to use permanent vinyl. And there is the Tack It method that I used. Whoop, thank goodness it didn't scratch. Yay! You know, little things that make people happy. I got my leaves off of Creative Fabrica. And for all of you who know me from Puzzle Tumblers, you know that I have been a huge fan of Creative Fabrica. I do design a lot of my own SVGs, but for things like this, I do have to go to a site. And then when I come back on next week, we're going to put the finishing touches by adding vinyl to these leaves. This is a 20-ounce skinny. It is not a straight. It does have a taper to it. So if you want to go to puzzletumblers.com, make sure that you don't want the taper, there is a tumbler there that does state no taper. You would think my animals don't see me all day and I come in here to do this and they sit at the door and meow and bark, but that's okay. They love me. Hope I'm in screen. I can't tell. On here. Now, if I did a darker color down here where my leaves were, I would use hot glue to put a little dot on there so that I could find where my leaves were. But I believe because I'm using white and I used a darker color vinyl, I should be able to find them. Should, you know. If not, I'll remove them off screen. There we go. And see what I mean? You can't really see the knot as much because it's I did it over a leaf, and a lot of the wood grain that I did is going to be over a leaf, so the parts that I really don't like, I did over the leaves. Okay, all of that is up. Very good. Next, we'll come up here and we will remove the leaves from the epoxy. Now, you don't want to leave them on because there is epoxy on them, and if you decide to pull them up later, they won't come up because the epoxy will have sealed them to your cup. It's just a matter of getting them to move. There we go. if you don't know where to get removable vinyl, I get mine from Hobby Lobby. You can also buy removable vinyl. Just look for the words removable. It does make a world of difference if you use the right vinyl when you want to do a peekaboo. Trust me. And it does make a huge difference. She's just a kitten, and she loves to be in here for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I don't want her in here with all the chemicals. Okay, there we go. If you find that you pull off any of the glitter, you can always just reapply it. That's the best part. Just add a little glitter to where you may have scraped. Like I have a little spot right here that needs to be covered. I'll just sprinkle a little glitter on it and it'll be fixed. We have 2 more to go, this one and one other one. And we'll pull the center off. And then I will let it dry before I spray paint it. It's not spray painted, I'll seal it with my sealer. See, just tap it down so to find the best part to put my hook under. I see it, but it doesn't want to play nice. Okay, come on. You can't stay here. You gotta play nice. There we go. I think, and it is the same vinyl. I don't know why it doesn't want to come up. There we go. It just didn't want to leave. And then I just pat it down a little bit. And you won't be able to see where I scraped it tight slightly. All right. Just like that. Don't think there are any others on here. And now I'll remove my tape. It's just painter's tape, 2.5-inch painter's tape. I'll use a little bit of nail polish remover, 100% acetone to remove little bits of mistakes. My paint got under here. Good. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry on my drying rack. And then next week when I come back, I have all of my leaves have been outlined on my cutter. And my cup will have been sealed and epoxy. And then we will add lines here and here. We'll add lines around our leaves and then we'll epoxy one last time and it will be done. But next week when we come back, I'll be able to show you adding the vinyl back on. So if you decide you would like to do the same tumbler with me, doesn't matter what kind, this is the Tack It method that is underneath our leaves. This is the wood grain method, and this is the epoxy method. So there are 3 methods going on here to make one beautiful cup when it's all done. So I hope that you guys can follow along and possibly do what I'm doing here next week. And we can finish up and have an absolutely gorgeous fall tumbler. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic day, that you stay safe out there, and that you're kind to one another. Take care.